First of all, welcome everyone, about 400 people, 2 minutes. So everyone looking for tonight, exciting night that we have a great speaker, Esther, join us. And tonight, before we start the speak series, and I'd like to introduce Alliance for Impact. Many of our speakers probably already know us. We start from Wall Street and the Asian community in WeChat group. Start quickly, start from 1,000 people to 30,000 people in 1.5 years. We provide more than 300 free seminars, cover different topics in investment, education, and all kind of mental health, this kind of seminar. So recently, we changed the name to Alliance for Impact, but we still use Chinese Coffee Club as one of our branding. So our mission and vision is very simple. We are bonding, bridging, and empower our Asian community and contribute to this society so that we can increase our impact and voice. So this slide. So because this is in Chinese, I just mentioned that, so I will skip that. So in the past 1.5 years, we already launched the VisVice Academy, which focus on finance, leadership, and trainings with adult and youth lessons. And also we launched the TCPC, the Center of the Parents and the Children, which have ADHD health parents supporting group, have autism supporting group, have all the mental health seminars. From January this year, every single day, we also launched the Sky Gym. Basically, we provided 2 or 3 free fitness lessons, such as yogas, Kung Fu, Tai Chi, all these kind of free lessons online, and 7 days a week, 7 days per week. So we really growing very fast. We welcome everybody tonight and to scan our code and join our WeChat group or our Telegram group. And definitely, I also welcome Esther can join our fitness program too, if you are interested. Okay. So now I also quickly want to announce tomorrow night, we invite the Conrad admission office come to discuss, share his experience, how college application, what kind of challenge we're facing in college application. And also next week, we have 2 very major events. So everyone probably hears the news that in New York, that person was pushed off the subway and she died. So the 5 lawyers who advocate for WeChat, they are famous. So they call CALDA, 华美维权联盟. They are nonprofit, all the lawyers. So next Thursday, we invite them back, and also NYPD policeman officer come to tell us how can we protect ourselves, how can we facing this kind of challenges, and also for promise to every parents, every people in our community, once a month we're gonna have the Generation Z seminar. So next Saturday we invite Serena Dean, who received many outstanding leadership awards. And also she received a lifetime award from President Fund. She was a president and CEO for the Under the Art, and their chapter spread around the global. She is outstanding youth. This year she just went to college. So, and this kind of Generation Z seminar once a month is hosted by our high school students. So welcome, parents can invite your children, join the volunteer and join the share. Okay, so now I wanted to introduce tonight, we have outstanding host Ivy Young. So if you look at the Ivy's background, I would say, wow. So Ivy is a chief operation officer from a Rational Integrate from China. She's also its international corporate affairs manager for Alibaba Group. Everybody know Alibaba Group, right? And she is also assistant to CEO for Soho China, the largest media company in China. And she graduated from NYU bachelor degree and also Columbia Business MBA. She has extensive experience in interview famous people like Esther. And of course, don't forget about our tonight's star. So Esther is the dean of the Harmony Plus. She is also godfather of Silicon Valley. We all read about article about her. I asked our team sending the interview about her spread our group. So if you have time, make sure you read about her story. And she's one of the most important leading American educators. She's a former consultant of the U.S. Department of Education, and she's also over 50 impact list from Forbes magazine 2021. That's last year. And the most impressive is she has so wonderful 3 daughters, and 2 of them are famous CEO, and 1 of them professor. You know, I have 4 kids. I hope I can have at least 1 to become CEO. So tonight, I'm also looking forward to listen how she could educate her 3 daughters and grew up so successfully. So now I'm going to turn tonight's speech to our dear 2 speaker and host. Thank you very much. Enjoy.
Thank you, Angeline. It's a really honor. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ivy, and I'm really honored today to host a discussion with Esther. Just a little bit more about Esther as part of the introduction. She is an educator, mother, author, founder, and dean, among many other things. And her daughters needs really no introduction. Anne is the CEO of 23andMe, a genetic testing company. Susan is the CEO of YouTube and Google employee number 16. And what I found really interesting was while reading your book, I learned that she actually basically rented her garage, was a garage provider to Larry and Sergey, which I would say ushered in this whole trend of kind of bootstrapping and starting in Silicon Valley, which I found really interesting. And Janet is a professor of pediatrics at the University of San Francisco. And Esther also taught many more in her role at Palo Alto High School in the media arts program, and was named California Teacher of the Year in 2002. As one of the most important leading educators, Esther has served as a consultant to Department of Education, and she was also named in the Forbes list 50 over 50 impact list. And as a mother of 2, I'm super excited to hear Esther today talk about, her groundbreaking TRICK method, and especially what she has written about in her book, How to Raise Successful People. The book has been translated actually into 24 languages, and it's really ushering, I would say it's in the process of a global education revolution. So without further ado, Esther, really excited for your presentation.
Well, thank you so much for this kind introduction. I'm very excited to be here with all of you. And so I will share my screen and tell you a little bit about what I did to raise successful children and to be a very successful teacher. And I should just tell you that it might be the opposite of what you think, to be honest, because most people think that if you tell kids what to do all the time, that then they will be very successful. I don't think we're on the right thing. You have to stop share.
Refresh. I think we need to refresh the page.
I think maybe it's here.
No, I think we should go to.
No, but that's Safari.
Oh,
that's what I just did.
Okay.
If I go here, just a minute. Sorry for this. We're trying to.
Let me ask you.
I think we aren't able to get the presentation for a second. We need York, who just happens to be one of our talented young people here who helps. And York, the presentation won't come up.
Okay. 我不知道应该我看一下他应该 share 哪一个文件。
See, it's on Safari.
I think we should just refresh it. Yeah. Okay. Refresh it. Now it works. Now you can go back to share again. Go back to Zoom. Click Zoom. Okay.
Where?
Yeah. Okay. Now share screen again. Yeah. Okay. Come here. I think it's working. Okay.
Okay, but now we need to make it so that it's bigger. Slideshow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's working.
So hopefully you can see the slides now. And so this presentation and I created specially for how Chinese family can benefit from my TRICK formula. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my TRICK formula while we go through these slides. So just so you know who I am, in case you missed it, I am the Dean of Harmony Plus, which is located here in Mountain View, California. It's a supplementary program to help empower students. I'm also called the godmother of Silicon Valley, and I think the main reason is because so many of my students have gone on to be successful CEOs. I am considered a leading American educator. I'm a consultant, former consultant of the US Department of Education. I was just elected to this list last year, 2021, 50 over 50, the women 50 over 50 who've had the greatest impact on the world. In 2002, I was very happy to be selected Teacher of the Year in California. My book has been translated into 24 languages. Number 25 is coming out in the fall of this year, and that's in the Arabic language. And as you noticed in the past discussion, my three daughters are very successful. Susan is the CEO of YouTube. Janet is a professor of pediatrics at UCSF. And Anne is the founder and the CEO of 23andMe. So this is my book in English. I want you to know it is published in Chinese also. So I don't know if you can see my picture here, but here it is in Chinese, and you can get it anywhere in China. It's all over in all the stores, and you can also order it online. And so this is the formula that I say helps to raise successful children, whether it's in the classroom or whether it's as parents. And like I said, it's kind of the opposite of what you might think is necessary. So TRICK is an English word that stands, and the letters in that word stand for trust, respect, independence, collaboration, and kindness. And what I say is that you need to trust your children, respect their ideas, give them a lot of independence, let them collaborate with you instead of you telling them what to do all the time, and then treat them with kindness. So I'm going to go through all of these in the talk just so you will be able to understand better. Of course, if you get the book, you'll be able to see all the examples that I have there. So these are my three daughters, and this is what I did to raise all three of them. And my theory is when you trust a child, they then trust themselves. And they understand that in order to succeed, you have to believe in yourself and believe that you can do it. So I did a very famous talk with Amy Chua. Amy Chua is the author of The Tiger Mom, and I'm sure you've heard about it in China. Yeah. And I did this talk in Mexico at a conference in Puebla, Mexico. And Amy, it's a 26-minute talk if you take a look at that. So if you want to watch it online, you can go online and watch it. But basically, Amy explained how she thought that parenting was one of the hardest things that she had ever done. And it was very stressful. And she could hardly wait to be done with it because it was just too much stress. And then I didn't have as much time as she did, but I basically said that for me, parenting was a gift, that I really enjoyed being a mother, and I could hardly wait to work with my children and help them be the best they could be. It was kind of an interesting debate. And at the end, the audience voted, and the guy that was in charge asked the question, he said, well, why don't you both tell us, the audience, what is the outcome of your parenting style? So they asked her what her children did, and then they asked me what my children did. And her children actually, if you listen, she didn't say that they did anything special. They were going to college, and her oldest daughter joined the Army, the US Army. So the competition was really no competition because the audience voted for me with a standing ovation about that's how you should raise your children. But I invite you to visit this talk yourself and see what you think about, what she said and how she raised her daughters. So in German, the book is, like I said, in 26 languages. So in German, it is called Panda Mama. And so I like to think of myself as a panda mama as opposed to a tiger mama. And the one on the left is Amy Chua's book, Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother. And the one on the right is my book, How to Raise Successful People. So this is something that Amy wouldn't let her kids do, which is kind of important for you to know. She wouldn't let them attend a sleepover, have a play date, be in a school play. She wouldn't let them complain about not being in a school play. She wouldn't let them watch TV or play computer games. She wouldn't let them choose their own extracurricular activities. She got really mad if they got any grade less than an A. And if they were not the #1 student in every subject except gym and drama, she got really angry. She insisted they play the piano or a violin, nothing else. And if you didn't play the piano or the violin, you couldn't play. So I'm not just guessing that these are what she wouldn't do. It's all in her book. She wrote about it. She tells you about it. And so it's very important for you to know what happened as a result of her parenting style. So when you think about helicopter parenting, like for example with Amy Chua, her intentions were good. She was trying her best to help her children. And I think that all helicopter parents have really good intentions. But what happens is it backfires on them, because when you are always telling your child what to do, then they feel dependent on you. They feel like they can't do anything right unless you are there to help them. And so that's why trust is so important. They need to learn to trust themselves. And when they trust themselves and believe in themselves, they have what is called grit, which means they stick to whatever it is they're doing. So I don't want to say that helicopter parents are starting from a difficult place, that they're doing their best, but they need to rethink what they're doing. Because I'll tell you, it turns out that all those kids become depressed. So everybody, I'm sorry to say, can't see this slide here. So I'm going to skip this slide. Signs that you might be a helicopter parent. One of them is you only let your child play on playgrounds with rubber mulch because you're afraid if they fall, they're going to hurt themselves. Another thing you did when your 4th grader came home crying from school because her best friend called her a name is to call her friend's mom to sort things out yourself. These are just indications that you might be a helicopter parent. What you might want to do is take a few minutes to think about what you are doing with your children. Are you always telling them what to do? And if you are, you might want to rethink that. If you have found yourself up at 11 p.m. rewriting your child's essay because you know they could have done a better job if they hadn't been so tired, you are a helicopter parent. You need to step back and give your child an opportunity to do things independently. So I can tell you that I let my children make all those mistakes. In elementary school here in the US, the grades the children get in elementary school, that's kindergarten, first, second, all the way through sixth grade, they don't matter. Even the grades you get in grade 7, 8 don't matter. It's only the ones that make a big difference are the ones later on that matter a lot. So here's more signs that you might be helicopter parenting. Having that, or that you have them help out by preparing dinner or cleaning the house has never crossed your mind. Knives are sharp and cleaning fluids are too dangerous. So if you don't let them do things to help you because you're worried they're going to get hurt, then you might want to rethink that. Let them help you do things around the house. Here's another one. You and your son are having a meeting with the teacher, and when she asks him a question, you answer it. That is not a good thing. The child needs to answer the question themselves. Here's another one. Your child didn't get accepted to his preferred major at college. So you call the chair of the department in college to negotiate for an exception. I'm not making these up, unfortunately. So a good friend of mine is named Julie Litcott-Haynes. She wrote a book, How to Raise an Adult. She used to be the dean of freshman students at Stanford. She wrote that book because these things that I'm describing happened all the time to freshmen who are 18 years old at Stanford. In other words, the parents were calling the professors and not allowing the child to negotiate on their own. So helicopter parenting hurts kids no matter what, regardless of your love or regardless of your support. It is very hurtful because basically it says to kids, you can't do it independently. You need me, or you need somebody like me who's going to guide you so you don't make any mistakes. So this is the book by Julie Litcott-Haynes. And I recommend it. It's also a very good book. It's very similar in many ways to mine, only mine has the TRICK acronym in it. And I think hers just talks about how hurtful it is to kids to always have their parents telling them what to do. So there's another problem with helicopter parenting. Kids that have helicopter parents have more health problems. So a 2016 study from Florida State University found that helicopter kids are more likely to have health issues as adults. They found that helicopter kids never learn how to manage their health because their parents always told them when to go to sleep, when to exercise, and what to eat. Can you believe? Really? So I know that it's being done, like I said, because you care so much, but you just need, that's why I'm saying it's the opposite of what you think is best for your kids. Intrusive parents often worry excessively about their kids' health and provide constant reminders about what to do. Studies show that in the absence of those constant reminders, helicopter kids don't care for their bodies. So they grow up to be adults and that you aren't there. And so they then don't care for their bodies. So just think about that. So it can also cause binge drinking. Why? Because they don't know how to control themselves. They're not used to being in charge of themselves and their behavior. So maybe this isn't as prevalent in China, but it's a real problem here in the United States. So this is just more examples of helicopter parenting, bad for your teen's health. So one of the main questions I get on these webinars is, it's just typical. I have a teenager who just doesn't want to get out of bed. He spends all the time in bed, and on the weekend doesn't seem to have any interest. That's unfortunately, again, a result of always being told what to do. Because whenever a child does something independently, the parent will frequently say, well, why don't you do it this way? Or why don't you do this instead? So that gets rid of their independent thinking. So as I said, helicopter parents dote on their kids so much that the children tend to think they're the center of the universe. And when they grow up and they aren't the center of the universe, they don't know how to cope. I'm giving you all the reasons why it doesn't work. And the fact that they do have a lot of emotional problems. There's a lot of studies. There's a 2013 study on the emotional problems that helicopter children have. And then there's another problem, and that they use a lot of medication to tolerate discomfort because they aren't used to controlling themselves. So their parents shield them from pain and from dealing with hardship. And so they're used to immediate gratification, which might explain why they're quick to reach for medication. They want their pain resolved. They don't want it, they want it to be gone now. So here's another reason helicopter parents are more likely to burn out, or kids are more likely to burn out and have a harder time transitioning to the real world. And they lead to abuse of drugs, as I said earlier. They lack self-regulation skills, and skills for life are missing. And we have a major problem with that here in the US. I probably wouldn't be surprised if it's true in China. They don't manage their time right, their money right, getting from one place to another. This is a summary of everything that is problematic. Have healthcare issues, stress management issues, and personal relationship issues. So one thing that parents can do to help kids feel secure is to have routines. So if you have a routine in your house, or routine for the weekdays, or routine for the weekends, routines eliminate power struggles and help kids cooperate. Routines also help kids learn to take charge of their own activities. One of the things that I always talk about is teach kids how to manage their cell phones. Don't do it for them. Teach them how to manage, teach them what is good for them, and then let them manage it. Because that makes them feel like they are in control. And in fact, they are in control. So I thought I would just tell you a little bit about Harmony Plus. We're located here in Mountain View, California, in the heart of Silicon Valley. We are a hybrid learning model that leverages both in-person and online resources. And we work to equip students with skills they need to adapt and excel. Kids go to the program by themselves, not with their parents. And we try to prepare them for a world where they're going to have to be in charge and make decisions independently.
I think you just finished your part.
Am I done with my part? Is this now?
No, I
Bill's
think
part?
it will be the host will say something.
Okay.
And maybe Q&A.
So I think maybe I am done and maybe Ivy is ready to speak. And so thank you all for listening. And I would like to suggest that you buy my book and read the specific examples in the book that will make you feel better about giving your child control of their own life. They're not in total control when they're 5 years old, of course. They gradually take control of their life. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much for that, Esther. That was really enlightening. And I guess to start, I think a lot of the audience might have a question about, because I think you talked a lot about how parents should learn to let go. And I think in the book, the trick is all about trusting and respecting the children, and so that they could become more independent. But I guess I'm asking for all the parents here, how do we as parents kind of work up the courage to let go? There's always that cusp between, when you feel like they're babies and then they become children or kids, and you have to kind of let go. What are some of the kind of tricks and tips that you give to parents to help us kind of make that transition?
So that's a great question. And it's hard to make that first step. But what you want to do is start with little steps. Let them do little things at a time, and they will eventually come to a bigger thing. So, you don't want to have a small child walking by themselves on a sidewalk with a lot of traffic around. But if children learn how to do whatever it is that is in your life, it could be even things like, cleaning up, vacuuming. It's kind of crazy, but in this pandemic, the number one person in charge of vacuuming the house was 5 years old. So, she felt very empowered because she was in charge of what considered a very important task. So I think little things to start and then get bigger and bigger.
And what about kind of the negotiation with the children who are a little bit older? Because a lot of about whether it's giving them respect or collaborating in the household environment, it requires for the parent to give up some control. So how does that negotiation, where you're feeling like you're still in some ways making sound decisions because you know that this is the right thing, but then sometimes the children might have a different idea. Like, how do you kind of gauge that, the control versus respect / collaboration?
Well, most adults, they want the child to do what they say. And so what you want to do is lay out what has to be done, whatever it is. It could be cleaning, it could be do the homework, it could be gaming, could be any of those things. And then have them state what their idea is. And then you, the parent, you state what your suggestion is. And then both groups have to come to a compromise, which means it's not going to be perfect for either one. But that's what negotiation and collaboration is. It is not perfect for anybody, but as things go along, it gets better and better. But what you're doing by giving your child an opportunity to follow their ideas is you're allowing them to be empowered and feel good about themselves. So you as a parent, most of the battles that people have with their children are about what to eat, what to wear, and
yes,
seriously,
it really is.
Have you done your homework? And of course, in today's world, it's about how much time you're spending on an electronic device.
Right.
So I think that is actually the biggest thing of all. So if you can negotiate with them and explain how spending 6 hours on your computer playing games is not good for your health, and then let them come up with a plan that might be interesting for you. I would collaborate on things like that, because you just have to start on one thing, just one, and then you can build to the next one. Don't try to build the whole house in one day.
So I'm sure that you also have very strong will, because they're super smart and accomplished even when they're growing up. How did you, when you talk with them and start to make a plan, what did you do when they kind of argued back and when they didn't want to do what you were talking with them about, when they kind of pushed back and then said that I think I can play, for example, video games for 6 hours? What would you say to them, and how did you kind of work around that?
Well, so I said, I know more about what's healthy and what's not healthy. You know more about what's fun for you. So we're going to negotiate. You tell me what's fun, and I'm going to tell you whether it's healthy or not. And then we're going to come to some kind of a conclusion together. So just the fact that you are listening to them, just that single fact makes a huge difference. And I can just tell you, as a teacher in my class, I had 70 teenagers in one class, 70. And what do you do when you have that many children between the ages of 15 and 18? I mean, those are the ones where all the parents are terrified. So how do I control their cell phone usage when it's one teacher to 70? So what did I do? I had a discussion with them at the beginning of the semester and said, what are the goals of the class? What are your goals? And how are we going to get there together? I want you, the students, to come up with the cell phone rules for this class. You come up with it. So they worked in groups of 4 or 5. They came up with rules that they thought would work. The whole class discussed it. We decided on it. I let them vote. I never had any problems with cell phone usage ever, because they came up with the rules, so they obeyed them.
Interesting.
Year after year. It wasn't just 1 year. It was all the time.
So, and just to kind of push this question a little bit further, so when they didn't adhere to what they had set out to do, and they lapsed in the middle or during the process, what is the repercussion? I mean, were there punishment? Were there another discussion? I'm just kind of thinking about it for all the parents who are like, I see some of the question there. We're all kind of thinking about it on a very executional level because we're all dealing with, these kids of varying ages at home. So what were the repercussions? Like, did they get punished? Did they get grounded per se? What did you do with both your children and the students?
Well, so with the students, it was actually easier, because I didn't have to control them. This control is built into the peer group. When other kids saw that they weren't behaving, I didn't have to do anything. The other kids did it. And they would say, you're not supposed to be using your phone now. I didn't even have to say a word. They would do the same thing. At home, if you come to some conclusion, that's much harder because it's just a few of them, like 3 kids, 2 kids, 1 kid. And so there has to be some kind of consequence. It can't be terrible. And so one thing I think is really important to remember for parents, kids make mistakes, and you, the adult, have to forgive them. You have to forgive them. And I can't emphasize that enough. Don't hold grudges. Because when you hold a grudge, then the child is always afraid to do anything the next time. Just say, I know you're young, I know you're little, I know you tried and you didn't do it. So these are the consequences, and you'll have another chance to try again. And again, And it was just like when students were writing their essays. Sometimes, honestly, sometimes they would get it perfect in one time, but most of the time, some kids had to do it 10 times, over and over and over again, because they just didn't get the right idea. So that's what I would advise the parents to do. Give the kids more of an opportunity to make a mistake, be forgiven, and do it again.
That's such great advice, I have to say. I think we all needed to hear that. Just to summarize, basically, I guess the trick is really to, number one, set up the parameter in which we've all come to a conclusion or come to some kind of understanding. And secondly, to really kind of follow through. And when being children, are unable to do that, we as parents have to forgive, not hold grudge, and really move on, so that we still have that rapport with our children, so that we move on and we do not kind of look to the past and to bring up the past even when we've kind of moved on to the next thing.
Right. One thing I just want to say is, when kids make a mistake, the number one person that they're mad at is themselves. And when they grow up, and you make a mistake and something bad happens, again, you're so angry, but frequently you're angry at yourself and you don't even realize it. And that anger at yourself can be very destructive. So you have to forgive yourself. And parents set the model by letting children redo something and then forgive them, and then they do it again. So then they will learn to forgive themselves.
That's really, really key. What are some of can you share maybe with us some of the things that you might say to Anne and to Susan when they were growing up, when they were mad at themselves? Because I totally understand what you're saying, because my 8-year-old really always gets mad at himself for the little things. And for me, it's always trying to kind of help him see it, in without like such a big consequence. I would love to hear, kind of, Esther, what you used to say, when they, for example, they didn't make a team in school, or they got a bad score on their test. What were some of the things that you would say to them?
So, like, for example, if they got a bad grade on a test or bad score on a test, I would say, don't worry about it. Why don't we just practice it here at home? And then next time when you have a test, you'll know how to do it. And so usually in school, if a student gets a bad grade on a test, they don't go back over it again. They just move forward. So maybe the student doesn't really understand what happened and why they got a bad grade. So I always wanted to make sure they understood why they got a bad grade. And then the next time when they did it, which was usually at a higher level, they had the building blocks for doing well again. And so the other thing is, I had them involved in sports. They were on a swim team, and they also played soccer, and they played tennis. And on a swim team, they started doing that very early. They were like under 5 when they were doing that. And so they learned to lose and not to get mad, just try harder. And also, soccer is a team sport. So it's important, I always felt, for them to be part of a team. And then tennis, of course, that was, it's a skill. Well, swimming is also a skill. But they did that their entire childhood, all those sports. And I wasn't trying to train an Olympic person. I just wanted them to have a fun time and learn how to be, and learn how to get along well in the world, is basically. And so that's what I would advise all kids, to have some kind of a sport that they can be involved in.
So aside from the sport, I think, in your book, you also talked about the importance of kind of building them up when they're young, to be self-driven, to motivate themselves. And there are a lot of questions actually in the chat. You were really asking about, how do you kind of raise children who are self-motivated? who are able to, build up grit up from a young age. Would love your thoughts on that, Esther.
So let me tell you, all kids are born curious, all of them. I mean, like, just imagine 0 to 1 years old. Those kids are crawling around, looking everywhere, and so forth. And the reason that they stop being curious is because people say no all the time. No, don't do this, don't do that, don't do whatever. It's don't. And so do your best not to have so many limits. Give them an opportunity to play when they want to. Because, Einstein said a very famous quote, and that is that play is the highest form of research. The kids are researching the world. They're looking around to see like what works, what doesn't work. And they will continue with this sense of play as long as you allow this to happen. And I can just think about, one of the things that I realized is that I always had an incredible sense of play. I was always kind of silly. And the kids loved that in class. And also my children always had this incredible sense of play. So I can tell you one thing that I think you might be able to relate to. One of my daughters, Anne, is very musically gifted. And she played the piano at about age 4 or 5, and played for a while. And I mean, gifted meant that she could listen to music and play it by ear. What's kind of shocking. She decided she didn't want to do that when she was about 6. Can you imagine? And so I was like, all right, what do you want to do instead? She wanted to be an ice skater. She saw a picture on TV and that's what she wanted to do. So I took her and let her learn to ice skate. And so she never became a great musician, but she became a professional ice skater, because whenever a child does something independently, the parent will frequently say, well, why don't you do it this way? Or why don't you do? So that was interesting to hear myself talking again.
No, that was wonderful. And I guess I have one last quick question before turning it back to Harmony Plus, is for all the helicopter parents currently in the audience, what would you suggest that you do when we're trying to reconnect with our children so that we could really kind of refresh this process of, doing the trick and trusting them and believing in them and collaborating with them? What are some of the advice that you would give to current, unreformed yet helicopter parents?
So one thing I would like to suggest is they could get the book, tell their child they got the book, that they learned about this new way of parenting that might make everyone in the family happier, parents happier, children happier, and they could let them hold the book. Maybe some of them, if they're older, they can read a little bit of the book and then say, this is what I'm going to do from now on, and I hope that works well for you. There's not a kid out there that's going to say no. I can tell you that my students, one of the most popular presents they were buying their parents for Christmas was my book.
Wonderful. That's great. I would highly suggest reading the book. I read it. It's really, really wonderful. I learned a ton, loved it. Thank you, Esther. That was wonderful. I'm sure everybody in the audience learned a ton as I did.